Hello and welcome to your daily mobile game sizzle with me, Jon Jordan. Today we're taking a look at Nintendo's financials. So it's released its financials for the year ending 31st of March 2017. And we're particularly going to take a look at its mobile phone sales. So that period of time from April 2016 to March 2017 was when Nintendo released its first proper mobile games. So well worth having a look at how it's got on. I've broken out a graph here. So Nintendo being Nintendo, it makes things a bit difficult. So it doesn't have a category called mobile phone sales. It has a category called smart devices and IP related income, etc. So so that obviously that's where its mobile phone sales go. Also, it has some kind of IP related income as well. So they kind of combine. We can't get a clear picture of what the mobile phone sales are. So what I've done here, as you can see this graph, it's this is the category, the smart device and IP related income. And what I've done is in blue, I've broken out what we can assume is the IP related part of it. So obviously in the financial year 2016 and Q1 and Q2 in 2017, Nintendo hadn't released mobile games. Well, it had released Mitomo, its social app, but that didn't make any money. So we can basically have that as a baseline for what Nintendo's IP related income is. So in that case, for Q3 and Q4, when it had released mobile games, I've kind of like assumed it did similar revenue to the previous year, which is an assumption, I granted, but probably I think a fairly accurate one. So then in red, the red columns are what we can say is its revenue from its mobile phone releases. So in Q3, it released Super Mario Run on iOS. So that was like mid-December. So even though there's quite a big jump there, that's only from effectively 2 weeks of Super Mario Run being available. So a big jump. Talking about the scale, so Nintendo is a Japanese company, obviously, so it announces its figures in yen. So 10 billion yen, that's the top marker there. That's about $100 million, roughly. Okay, so you get an idea. So we're talking about probably about $50 million in Q3, which is kind of what the figures seem to suggest that Super Mario Run had done in that period of time. Then in Q4, much bigger, probably saying over $100 million of revenue there. So we have obviously a bit of a Super Mario Run on iOS that was still did quite well for the first month. It was still in the top 100 in the US. Obviously dropped off. It was a free to start game, as Nintendo likes to call it. So you get a few levels for free, then you pay $10 to unlock the rest of it. But in that kind of model, you basically your top grossing position peaks at the start and then drops off because you can't charge once someone spent $10, you can't charge them anymore. So different to the free to play model. Also in Q4, we have a little bit again of Super Mario Run that was released on Android. So that was released only a week of that. That was released at the end of March. So a small bit of revenue from Super Mario Run Android, but most of that revenue has come from Fire Emblem Heroes. So Fire Emblem Heroes was its RPG released at the start of February, so still only 2 months. Obviously, financial quarters are 3 months worth. So the bulk of that revenue has come from Fire Emblem Heroes. So pretty impressive. It's done particularly well in Japan. So as you can see from the title of the graph, rough estimates is we can say Nintendo has made over $150 million from its 2 mobile games during this period. So in this graph, we're looking at the geographical breakdown of Nintendo's revenue. This is the smartphone and IP related category. I've not broken it down into the IP related elements because I don't know how they break down geographically. So just bear that in mind. The clear takeaway is Japan is Nintendo's biggest market for smartphone games. The Americas actually quite strong, not that far behind, surprisingly so, I think. And the way that kind of breaks down is that Fire Emblem Heroes has been very successful in Japan. So it's been a top 20 top grossing game since its launch. In the States, it's been a top 100 top grossing game and has shown much more volatility. So you'd probably think the ratio is probably like 5 to 1. It's generated 5 times more revenue in Japan than in the US. The other reason that the US will have generated a lot of money for Nintendo is it was the place where Super Mario Run did very well. So it did much better on iOS and Android in America than it did in Japan. But really, Japan and the US are Nintendo's big markets for its mobile games, and you're seeing that reflected in the fact that Europe and others don't really generate much at all. So in terms of Nintendo's mobile games, we can see that Super Mario Run and Fire Emblem Heroes generated about $150 million during its financial year. But there was another game that did actually probably more money for Nintendo that it didn't release. So of course that was Pokemon Go. So Pokemon Go was released by Niantic Inc., which was a company out of Google and invested in by Google, Nintendo, and the Pokemon Company. So Nintendo has skin in that game in terms of it's invested in the company. But in terms of its financials, it has indirect revenue because it owns about a third of the Pokemon Company. So the Pokemon Company obviously makes Pokemon games, and Niantic is a licensor. So the Pokemon Company generates IP-related revenue every quarter from the success of Pokemon Go. So what was interesting about Pokemon Go is when it came out, Nintendo's share price doubled overnight. Amazing increase, speculation by investors, no doubt, and Nintendo was a bit worried about it, I think, put out a statement saying we are not going to generate a lot of money from Pokemon Go because of the way this structure, it's not generating direct money for us. But actually, it was a little bit cautious. So actually, Pokemon Go has generated quite a lot of money for Nintendo during its financial year. So we can see this is the graph. So again, Nintendo puts things in a certain way. So it basically has this category called share of profits from entity accounting for using equity method. So basically, money it gets from companies in which it has a share of that pay effectively a dividend. So we can see here, we've done it again for 2 financial years. We can see at the bottom, not a lot happens until the Q3 quarter, which ends which is September 2016. So Pokemon Go was released in July, and we see a massive increase straight away. That's the biggest amount of revenue Nintendo got, was when Pokemon Go was released. No surprise there. And again, it's over 10 billion yen, so over $100 million of revenue in that first quarter. Drops off in Q3 and Q4, but in Q3 it's still getting on for 50 million, and then probably about just under 40 million, I expect, in Q4. So over that period of time, okay, there's still some residual in there, so it's not the top of those columns is not all from Pokemon Go, but we can say Nintendo's probably generated about $150–160 million from Pokemon Go during the financial year. And what's kind of interesting for if you care about accounting and finances is that that revenue isn't booked as revenue for Nintendo because it's indirect revenue, so it's actually booked on its balance sheet as a profit. So that just comes into Nintendo as a profit. And Nintendo had a very profitable year last year. One reason was Pokemon Go. So Pokemon Go added to that about 7% of profits. And the other big thing, much bigger, was actually Nintendo sold its stake in the Seattle Mariners baseball team. So it owned that for a long period of time, sold it off for almost over $650 million. And again, that was just booked as profit on Nintendo's balance sheet. So Nintendo made a lots of profit last year, but 90% of that profit came from not from its games or its consoles. It came from Pokemon Go, a small portion, and mainly from Seattle Mariners sale. So it looks like Nintendo's had a brilliant year and turned everything around. Its sales were actually down slightly, and its profits were up massively, but its profits were these kind of two extraordinary events. So we'll wait to see next year how obviously Switch is doing very well at the moment, so I'm sure Nintendo will be doing okay, but it won't be as profitable next year as it was last year, this year, because of these two events. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon, and don't forget to subscribe. Hi, and thanks for watching right to the end of the video. We always like to see your comments, so please put them in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe. And check out some more of our other videos about the mobile games industry. There's 2 really good examples on your screen right now.